When the world doubts you, remember this. Their disbelief is not an obstacle, it is a resource. In this video, you will learn how to turn skepticism into fuel, betrayal into leverage, and the underestimation of others into the sharpest weapon in your arsenal. When a man is doubted, he stands at a crossroads few dare to acknowledge. One path leads to despair, to wounded pride, to an existence shaped by the judgments of lesser minds. The other path, the one walked by rulers, strategists, and those who bend history, begins with silence, calculation, and a refusal to let any external voice define one's destiny. In the shadows of doubt, power quietly germinates. It is here that a wise individual sharpens their ambition, conceals their intentions, and watches as their opponents reveal the weaknesses they hoped to hide. For nothing exposes a man's true nature like his attempt to undermine yours. This is not a guide for the fragile. It is a philosophy for the underestimated, those who understand that being doubted is not an insult, but an initiation into a higher form of strategy. When others doubt you, they offer you a gift they will never recognize: the freedom to move unseen. In a world obsessed with appearances, expectation becomes a cage, and underestimation becomes the key that opens it. So ask yourself, why crave validation when invisibility is far more useful? Consider the young prince who rises among powerful rivals. The moment he is seen as a threat, alliances form, daggers sharpen, and every step he takes is watched with suspicion. But if he is dismissed as harmless, he moves without resistance. He studies the ambitions of others. He learns their vices, their addictions, their fractures. He becomes familiar with their weaknesses long before they ever see him as a danger. And by the time they wake from their arrogance, he stands above them. Underestimation is camouflage. It shields your developing strength. It hides your strategy. It allows you to prepare while others sleep comfortably in their assumptions. Why reveal your potential too early? Why announce your hunger for power when silence gathers more advantage than proclamations ever could? History rewards the quiet strategist. Caesar, before crossing the Rubicon, allowed the Senate to believe he was content with their crumbs of authority. They doubted the fire he carried. That doubt allowed him to position his legions, fortify his alliances, and study Rome's political fractures. When he finally acted, the city was already his in all but name. Your life is no different. When co-workers dismiss you, they relax their guard. When family members belittle your ambitions, they expose the limits of their own imagination, not yours. When so-called friends assume you lack discipline, they reveal how little they study your character. Their error becomes your instrument. But there is a condition. You must not respond to doubt with emotional defensiveness. The moment you defend yourself, you expose yourself. You reveal intention. You break the illusion that protects you. Instead, you nod. You listen. You allow them to believe you are smaller than you are. And while they speak, you sharpen the blade of your silence. Psychologists call this the advantage of low expectations. When people assume you are incapable, they overlook your progress. They misread your intentions. They underestimate your intelligence. This cognitive bias blinds them, and in their blindness, your strategy grows. Have you noticed how predators in the wild use stillness, not noise, to approach their target? Power functions the same way. The strongest move is often the quietest one. A single step made in silence can outweigh 100 made in pride. Imagine a rival at work who constantly boasts, flaunts their achievements, and treats you as insignificant. Their arrogance is noise. Your humility, strategic humility, is cover. While they waste energy demanding attention, you gather information, refine skills, and observe the loopholes they leave open. The underestimated opponent does not need to fight harder. They need only fight smarter. You win by seeing what others refuse to see, by hearing what others talk over, by preparing in the shadows while they parade in the light. But understand this well. Being underestimated is not about acting weak. It is about choosing not to reveal your strength. It is a performance, a mask, a role you play to give others a false sense of security. Great strategists thrive behind such masks. And then comes the moment of revelation, the moment when your rise feels sudden, inevitable, unstoppable. But in truth, nothing about it was sudden. It was built in silence, brick by brick, while others watched the wrong things. So ask yourself once more, are you wasting energy trying to prove yourself to the world? Or are you learning to use the world's doubt as your shield? Because those who understand the value of being underestimated do not fear doubt, they cultivate it. And as you move toward your next evolution, remember this: the greatest power grows where no one is looking. But how do you ensure that silence does not turn into stagnation and invisibility into irrelevance? That is the next step, and the next keynote reveals the discipline required to transform hidden potential into unstoppable momentum. Prepare yourself now, for what follows will confront you with truths that demand action, not mere contemplation to master. When doubt wounds you, the first impulse is to defend yourself, to prove your worth, to shout that others are wrong. But this instinct is the very trap that destroys the ambitious. Power is not built in outbursts. It is built in discipline. Discipline earned from pain, refined through injury, and forged in silence. Ask yourself, what separates those who rise after being doubted from those who collapse beneath it? It is not talent. It is not luck. It is the ability to convert emotional injury into strategic focus. Consider the generals of old. When Hannibal lost men in the Alps, he did not despair. He used the harshness of the journey to harden the resolve of the survivors. Every frostbite, every fallen soldier, every moment of doubt became fuel for a victory Rome never anticipated. The world sees suffering as a setback. A strategist sees it as reshaping. But how do you transform the sting of doubt rather than drown in it? You begin by refusing to let emotion dictate your behavior. Emotion is a reaction. Discipline is a command. Anyone can feel wounded. Few can weaponize that wound. Think of the modern workplace. A manager subtly questions your competence. A colleague mocks your ambition with a smirk disguised as a joke. Most people respond with visible frustration, surrendering their emotional control to their enemy. But a disciplined mind studies the insult instead of reacting to it. It asks, what does this reveal about them? What weaknesses does this expose? How can this serve me? Because every insult contains information. Every doubt cast upon you tells a story about the one who casts it. And information is worth more than pride. Psychologists speak of cognitive reframing, the ability to reinterpret adversity in a way that strengthens you rather than weakens you. But long before psychology gave it a name, strategists practiced it as survival. They knew that pain, properly directed, becomes discipline. And discipline, in the hands of someone underestimated, becomes destiny. Let me give you a scene. A young scholar in Florence is mocked by older intellectuals who believe he lacks refinement. He could react with anger. He could defend his intellect. But instead, he spends nights studying while they spend evenings drinking. He uses their doubt as a mirror, reflecting exactly what he must sharpen within himself. Years later, they speak about philosophy. He writes the works that shape centuries. You may not face scholars or senators, but the principle remains. Every moment of disrespect is an invitation to refine your focus. Every slight is a message telling you where to apply your effort. Every dismissal is motivation carved into your mind like stone. But discipline is not merely about self-control. It is about strategy. You must ask, how can I convert this negative energy into productive movement? Not merely to soothe your ego, but to build the structure of your eventual dominance. When you are doubted, you gain a rare advantage. Your progress becomes invisible. No one expects improvement. No one monitors your growth. No one imagines your future strength. This gives you the freedom to sharpen yourself without interference. But only if you can master the discipline to stay silent, consistent, and focused. Look at the athlete who is told he will never rise above mediocrity. Most crumble. A select few turn the insult into a ritual. Every training session becomes a reply. Every repetition becomes a rebuttal. Every early morning becomes a declaration of intent. They speak not with words, but with persistence. The disciplined mind does not chase validation. It chases transformation. It lets the world doubt, mock, minimize, because discipline is the quiet force that prepares you for the moment when your progress is too great to ignore. And here, is the truth you must understand. The more deeply you are doubted, the more powerful your discipline can become. But this leads to a crucial question. Once your discipline is forged from injury, how do you decide when to reveal the strength you built in silence? Power revealed too early becomes fragile, exposed, and easily sabotaged. This is why the wise conceal their strength until the moment revelation serves not pride, but advantage. You must ask yourself, why show your hand when your opponents are still confident in their miscalculations? Let their blindness labor on your behalf. History is filled with figures who mastered the art of delayed revelation. Consider Saladin, who appeared mild toward his rivals, while quietly uniting fractured factions beneath him. He understood that displaying power before it was fully consolidated invited resistance. Staying underestimated allowed him to strike only when the outcome was already assured. You must recognize the psychological power in withholding your capability. When people assume you lack strength, they expose their vulnerabilities in front of you without hesitation. They speak too freely, plan too openly, and leave doors unguarded. Why interrupt their self-betrayal? Let their assumptions create the very opportunities you will later exploit. Picture a workplace scenario. A colleague believes you incompetent and therefore feels comfortable displaying carelessness around you. Another assumes you pose no threat and reveals confidential ambitions. By remaining silent, you collect information that would have remained hidden had you boasted your skill. Silence becomes intelligence. Concealment becomes advantage. Psychologists call this the observer's advantage, the power gained by watching while others act impulsively. But long before such terms existed, strategists understood the value of letting opponents reveal themselves. You must train yourself to view every assumption made about you as a curtain you can quietly stand behind until the timing shifts. Yet, delayed revelation is not passivity, it is preparation. It is the slow gathering of influence, while others congratulate themselves for misjudging you. Think of a chess game where a player appears defensive, even timid, only to unveil a decisive combination at the moment the opponent's guard is weakest. Strategy thrives in misdirection. But here lies the difficulty. Your ego will demand recognition long before it is strategically wise to reveal anything. You will want to announce your progress, declare your intentions, and silence your doubters. Resist this impulse. Every word you speak about your plans becomes intelligence your rivals can use against you. Think of how many dreams die not from failure, but from premature exposure. When you reveal your direction, others begin shaping obstacles. When you keep your intentions concealed, they underestimate the momentum building beneath your silence. Ask yourself, do you want applause now or victory later? One provides noise. The other provides legacy. This principle echoes through political history. Rulers who survived did so by restricting what others knew of their true capabilities. Those who paraded their strength invited coalitions against them. Those who masked it allowed rivals to turn against each other while they quietly tightened their own control. Concealment is not cowardice, it is calculus. Even in personal relationships, timing determines power. Reveal affection too early, and you surrender leverage. Reveal your boundaries too late, and you invite manipulation. Humans are predictable in their reactions to information. They push when they sense openness, and retreat when they sense mystery. Use this predictability with precision, not sentiment. So you must decide, will you reveal your strength when it flatters your ego, or when it changes your destiny? The difference defines conquerors. Revealing too early satisfies emotion, but weakens position. Revealing at the right moment turns a quiet ascent into a decisive domination. Timing is the architect of victory. But understand this, delayed revelation demands patience, and patience is a form of power many refuse to cultivate. It requires you to endure misjudgment without reacting, to build without acknowledgement, to strengthen without approval. Yet everything mighty grows in silence before it stands unignorable in the light. So ask yourself again, what advantage might you gain if you waited just a little longer before unveiling what you have become? How much stronger could your position be if your rivals never saw the transformation until it was too late? Power blooms when hidden. It strikes only when the world believes it cannot. And now you must face the question, once you control timing, how do you bend your doubters' weaknesses to your will? The keynote reveals shift from patience to power. Doubt does not emerge from wisdom. It emerges from fear, insecurity, envy, and projection. When someone dismisses you, they are not revealing your limits, they are revealing their own. And if you learn to read these revelations with precision, you gain power without ever lifting a hand. Ask yourself, when someone doubts you, what exactly are they trying to hide? A man who projects inferiority onto you fears the possibility of your rise. A woman who mocks your ambitions trembles at the thought that yours may outgrow hers. And those who laugh at your plans, they laugh because the alternative that you might succeed is too threatening for them to confront. Your task is to study these reactions as a strategist studies battlefield winds, coldly, calmly, without ego. Not to defend yourself, but to understand the architecture of your enemy's mind. History provides countless lessons in this. Consider the court of Louis XI, where nobles doubted the king's diplomatic cunning. They assumed his quiet demeanor was weakness, but their doubt exposed their arrogance, their blindness, and the fractures within their alliances. Louis observed, listened, and watched as they revealed more than they intended until the moment he used their own insecurities to pit them against each other. He did not conquer by brute force. He conquered by understanding the motives behind their doubt. You must learn to do the same. Think of the modern world. A coworker downplays your contributions. Another subtly highlights your mistakes. On the surface, it appears they are asserting dominance. But psychologically, such behaviors often come from fear. Fear that you may surpass them. Fear that your competence exposes their incompetence. Fear that your ambition threatens the quiet stagnation they rely on. So you study them, not with anger, but with curiosity. What do they fear losing? What insecurity drives them? What weakness do they think they're hiding? Because every doubt cast upon you carries a motive, and when you identify the motive, you identify the leverage. Take the classic manipulator who belittles you to feel superior. Their doubt is a shield meant to protect their fragile ego. Once you see this, you no longer feel wounded by their words. You feel informed, you recognize the opening. Or think of the superior who criticizes your ideas publicly but steals them privately. Their doubt is not genuine dismissal, it is camouflage for envy. Such a person can be manipulated subtly by letting them believe they are the one in control, even while they unknowingly advance your direction. This is the hidden advantage in studying doubt. Your adversaries reveal their pressure points without realizing it. Psychology describes this as projection. People place onto you the flaws they fear within themselves. A lazy person calls you unmotivated. A threatened person calls you dangerous. An insecure person calls you incompetent. Their words reflect their internal chaos, not your external reality. Do you see the opportunity within that? When you read someone's doubt as a confession, you gain the ability to maneuver around them effortlessly. You know what they fear. You know where they are blind. You know which emotional strings they respond to. Strategy begins with understanding. Control begins with prediction. Power begins with insight. And what better insight is there than the weaknesses people shout unintentionally while trying to undermine you? But here is the crucial part. You must not reveal that you understand. Once someone knows their weakness is visible, they shield it. Let them believe you are oblivious. Let them doubt your perception. Let them remain exposed. Your silence keeps them predictable. Your observation keeps them vulnerable. Your patience turns their insecurity into a map you can navigate. And eventually, the very people who doubted you become the architects of their own downfall. Not because you attacked them, but because you understood them better than they understood you. So ask yourself, what could you achieve if every doubter became a source of intelligence rather than a source of pain? How much power could you accumulate by studying the psychology behind every insult, every dismissal, every smirk aimed at your ambition? Because once you master this, you no longer fear doubt. You harvest it. And now, a greater question emerges. Once you have dissected their weaknesses and gathered your insights, how do you strike in a way that forces the world to acknowledge the power it once denied? That is the path revealed in the next keynote. where silence transforms into dominance. True power does not announce itself. It gathers quietly, like a storm forming beyond the horizon, unseen, unheard, yet inevitable. And when it finally arrives, it does not ask for recognition. It demands it. This is the essence of striking loudly after building quietly. You do not reveal fragments of your progress. You reveal the finished transformation, the one impossible to ignore. Ask yourself, why waste energy proving yourself in pieces when you can devastate expectations in a single decisive moment? Think of Genghis Khan. Before he became the terror of continents, he spent years in obscurity, rising from enslavement and betrayal. He did not flaunt his strength while it was fragile. He built alliances quietly, broke rivals silently, and waited until his power was consolidated. And when he chose to strike, his enemies realized too late that the man they dismissed had already reshaped the world. Your life is no different, though your battlefield may be smaller. The principle is the same. Build in shadows. Strike in daylight. People respect results, not promises. They believe outcomes, not intentions. So when the world doubts you, the temptation is to correct them immediately. But every moment you spend explaining your potential is a moment stolen from building actual power. Silence becomes your forge. Consistency becomes your weapon. And the eventual result becomes your thunder. Consider a modern example. An employee is overlooked repeatedly, ignored in meetings, and underestimated by management. Instead of complaining, he sharpens his skills, learns the system's weaknesses, and positions himself strategically. He takes on work others avoid, studies the company's blind spots, and builds competence invisibly. Then, when a crisis hits a missed deadline, a leadership gap, a failed project, he steps forward with solutions no one expected him capable of. In a single moment, doubt collapses. His rise appears sudden, but it was prepared in silence. This is the psychological impact of the decisive strike. People are stunned not by your growth, but by their failure to notice it. Psychologists refer to this as discrepant realization. The shock people experience when reality contradicts their expectations in a way too dramatic to dismiss. When used strategically, it destabilizes your doubters, disarms your rivals, and forces even your critics into reluctant admiration. But a decisive strike is not simply about performance. It is about timing. You strike not when you feel ready, but when your success has maximum impact, when it humiliates the doubters, when it forces acknowledgement, when it alters the balance of power. Imagine a painter who unveils her work only when the exhibition hall is full, or a strategist who reveals his plan only when the enemy's escape route is gone, or a student who reveals brilliance only during the final examination, leaving no opportunity for sabotage. Timing is not decoration, it is domination. Yet many fail because they strike too soon. They reveal their progress halfway. They show their ideas before they are refined. They expose their ambition before they have protection. And in doing so, they give their rivals the very weapons that will eventually be used against them. Build first. Reveal later. Strike last. This discipline shapes perception, and perception shapes power. Once people believe you are capable, they treat you differently. Doors open. Respect emerges. The same voices that doubted you become quiet, hesitant, cautious, not because you argued with them, but because you outgrew their ability to define you. Now you must ask yourself, what would your life look like if your progress remained entirely in your control, unseen, unjudged, uninterrupted until the moment you chose to reveal it? What would it mean to strike so loudly that no one could ever doubt you again? Because the truth is simple. The world listens to power when it arrives fully formed. It ignores it when it is still growing. But after the strike comes another question. Once the world finally sees your strength, how do you maintain that power without letting others erode it? The next path reveals the discipline required not only to rise, but to remain unshakable. Power is never taken by force alone. The most effective control is exercised quietly through perception, timing, psychology, and the blindness of those who underestimate you. You influence them without their awareness. You guide them without their resistance. You shape outcomes while appearing uninvolved. This is the truth most people fear to admit. The world is ruled not by those who shout the loudest, but by those who observe the deepest. Not by those who demand obedience, but by those who make obedience feel like a choice. So ask yourself, are you still trying to prove yourself to doubters? Or have you learned to use their doubt as a leash? Reflect on your own behavior. Where have you revealed too much? Where have you struck too early? Where have you allowed others to see the power you should have kept hidden? If this journey opened your eyes, then let your next move be decisive. Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe for more Machiavellian strategies. And share this video with those who still fail to understand how power truly works.